Hi, this is Davide De Angelis, and I'd like to talk to you about the process of transition. And really this is a way of us describing changing from one form, one way of being, one way of living, to another form, another way of being, another way of living. And this can be a very physical thing, or it can be changing from one way of thinking, one belief, one way of believing the world to be, to another way of believing the world to be. So it can take very different forms. And really, what's happened in our culture, in our society, is that we've lost many of the traditional ways of dealing with transition, dealing with change. And although we've got satellite video phones and quantum physics and all the myriad of wonders and miracles that our 24/7 technological culture has given us, we've lost a lot of our connections with the greater, often slower rhythms of life and of our existence along the way. And in our obsession with speed and everything having to be delivered as quickly as possible, often we're tricked into believing that our lives can unfold in the same way. And change is something that obviously affects all of us. We're all moved and transformed by this time that changes, this idea of us moving through time. And really there's no way around that. We are characterized by change. It's who we are. And in many ways we've been taught to look at this process of transition, this process of change, as something that is fearful, and to come out of that as quickly as possible. And really there's three, in the more integrated way of looking at transitions, there's three distinct phases of transition. And the first one is the ending. And from the ending we move into what can be described as the chaos or the wilderness zone. And then from that, only after we've gone through that, can we really properly go into a new beginning and take into that new beginning all the learning, all the guidance and all the wisdom that has emerged and been integrated from those other two phases of the transition process. And really when we look at the thing of change, it is that a particular form, particular way of being no longer fits who we are. It no longer, the discomfort really in change is that we don't fit who we used to be. Even if who we used to be was something that was undesirable and uncomfortable in many ways, when we no longer fit that form and it no longer works for us, and there's a kind of breaking down of those areas of familiarity that even didn't work for us, but somehow they did. So often people will be uncomfortable, but familiar with that discomfort. And then when the process of transition kicks off, it's really life compelling us to evolve, life compelling us to actually enter deeply into our own evolutionary process. And I wouldn't characterize this necessarily as growth. Often we call this growth, and again in our culture, we have an obsession with growth. But really, I would say it's more a deepening of our intimacy with life, a deepening of our connection with the wisdom and the guidance of life, and the whole holistic process of life acting through us and upon us and around us. And when we honour the process of transition and we honour our process of change, it's almost becomes a beautiful process instead of a frightful process, a fearful process. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't fear contained within that. But fear encountered with awareness and with compassion and with an openness to the guiding principle is very different from the kind of fear, the aloneness and the contraction of how fear is often presented to us and how we often experience fear. And in the process of transition, when we understand how to go through the ending, the chaos, the wilderness zone, and then enter into new, when we understand how to use these ways of moving through transition in our life, we find that many of the stressful, unexamined stories that were attached to our actions fall away, and we actually are able to take action from a very different perspective. And when we're able to take action minus the stressful, limiting stories that we so often carry around with us, we find our actions come from a different part of us. They come from a deeper part of us, and they come from a more connected part of us. And then when we're acting on that level, when we arrive at the new beginning, we bring that into our new beginnings, and our new beginnings become more energized and more empowered and more exciting. And also we stop going round in repeating these same patterns that haven't served us. And when we don't allow ourselves the pleasure and the delight and the courage and the uncertainty of going through this transition process properly and really working with it as something that enhances our life and gives our life greater meaning and greater depth and greater clarity. When we don't do that, there is this tendency to find it difficult to really move on. And like I said, really when we bring this way of being into the different phases of our life, and it might be that you're going through a relationship change, you may be, like I said earlier, you wish to change physically. It may be that you wish to change your work. It may be that some part of the way that you're operating now isn't working anymore, and you'll feel yourself unable to really see the way forward. And there is that fear of not seeing the way forward. What we're offering in the Powerful Transitions workshop is really a way for you to gain greater understanding and greater clarity around these three elements of transition.